Good evening, everyone. Uh, Here on the board on your left, I have the four lines that was presented in the last international camp meeting in Italy. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that. Are all of you familiar with that already? Are you? Okay. So this was presented by Parminder, and he was showing the logic, and I'm not going to explain here this today. When Parminder was explaining this, he was showing, based upon the agricultural model, how the line of 144,000, the priests, the Levites, and Nethinims works. And he was showing that you have a plowing time, followed by an early rain time, followed by a later rain time, and after that, you have the harvest, okay? So he was explaining that history, and he presented that in Italy, and then he came for the School of the Prophets here in Arkansas for a trimester, and we were still talking about that. And he was showing a logic, but there was one thing that I personally didn't notice that he did, and I don't know if many of you noticed that he did that, and that's what I want to point out for you, okay? So he was showing the logic that after the Sunday law, it begins the loud cry, but it swells into a loud cry. That even though it's a period of time, we can mark a point to say, oh, here is the loud cry. And I'm going to put a LC here for a loud cry. So the loud cry happens during the latter rain time, and that's what? That's when we call people out of the Protestant churches. Are we okay with that? That's Revelation 18, verse 4. Okay? So he was showing the line of the priest, and the line of the priest parallels the lines of 144,000. But our close of probation is this year, 2019, November 9. Okay? And after that, we have Panium. But before our Sunday law, or better, when our latter rain begins, it's in 2014. Okay? So what do you have between the Sunday law and the close of probation? A loud cry, right? So you have a loud cry here. We're going to put a loud cry here. So he was explaining the lines, and when you go to the lines of the Levites and Nethinims, you have the plowing time, you have the early rain time, you have the latter rain time, and what do you have here between the Sunday law of the Levites and the close of probation? What we should have? A loud cry. But do you know where he put the loud cry of the Levites? He didn't put it there. He put it here during the harvest of the Levites. How many of you noticed that? Raise your hands. One. Okay, I didn't notice. Okay. So he put it the loud cry during the harvest time of the Levites, and also with the Nethinims. What if you follow the pattern of the 144,000, you should have the loud cry during the latter rain time. But if you go to the lines of Levites and Nethinims, you have a loud cry here during the harvest time. And I didn't notice this until someone came to me and said, hey Daniel, the lines you did on the board are wrong. And I said, why? What's wrong there? If you follow the pattern, it's all right. And he said, you were putting the loud cry in the wrong place. And I'm not. And the person came to me, yes, look at the photo of the camp meeting in Italy. And I was like, wow, I didn't notice that. And then I went to Parminder. Parminder, why are you doing the loud cry of the Levites and the Nethinims during the harvest time? And he was saying, okay, in the harvest model, what do you do during the harvest time? You cut the plant out, right? And what does it says in Revelation 18 verse 4 that you do to the people when you take the third angel's message for them? You call them out. So that was his explanation. And I said, okay, so is that rhyming now? Come out, cut out? Is that how it works? Just because the words match, now it means that come out of her, my people, has to mean cut out. For me, it doesn't make sense. Could you give me a thus said the Lord for that? Because I don't believe what you're saying. I don't agree with that. And he was like, Daniel, you need to understand what it means. And I was like, I don't care what it means. could you give me a thus saith the Lord? Because for me, you give me a thus saith Parminder. I don't agree that come out of her, my people means cut out of her, my people. How can you say that? Based upon which quote are you saying that? I mean, me and Parminder, we are really friendly, okay? So if we know ourselves, it's not our discussion, it's a really friendly conversation. And he was saying for me, Daniel, you need to understand what it means. And I was like, I don't care what it means. I want a Bible verse to prove that. Because for me, it doesn't make sense. But what he was saying is right. Because even though you don't have a thus saith the Lord to prove that, if you go to the line of the priests, the Levites and Nethinims, you understand that something is different between them. In the line of the 144,000, during the latter end time, the 144,000, they're harvesting the people. Okay? In the priest line, who is harvesting the priest? Is anyone harvesting the priest? Nobody's harvesting the priest. They're doing their own job. So there is nobody to cut them off. They're doing their own job. Why is that important? Because in the line of the Levites and Nethinims, that's different. In the lines of the Levites, who is harvesting them? We are harvesting them. The priests are taking the message for the Levites, and what do we do with them? We call them out. In other words, we cut them out. You understand that? We need to understand what it means. Even though you don't have a thus saith the Lord, if you understand what it means, you're going to understand how to apply correctly. Okay? Many of us, including me, I will put the loud cry here during this time. But we need to understand that their loud cry means something different. Because this loud cry for us, it means what? It's a prediction. It's a prediction about the close of probation. That's 2018. But what it means, the loud cry for the Levites, it's the cutting out that we are doing. We're cutting them out. We're calling them out. And the same thing with the Nethinims. That's why the priests are the same as the 144,000. Because they have the same job. They are the one that cut people out. Okay? They're the one that called them out. So why was that important? Because I noticed during this long time, and I just could notice that because I spent 2 trimesters with Parminder, so I kind of clicked what he was trying to say, that we need to go deeper than just what it's written. We need to understand what the things means. Okay? So today we're going to do something, we're going to do some practical work, and that's how we're going to do. So normally what do? We have a Bible verse, or we have a Bible verse, and to understand this Bible verse, what do we do normally? We go to Ellen White, right? We go to Ellen White, and she gives us the answer. And the answer is correct, and that's fine, okay? But today we're going to do something different. We're going to get a Bible verse, or Ellen White quote. We're going to get a Bible verse. And we're going to go to Ellen White, and instead of getting the answer, we're going to try to get the principle that she applies to get the answer, okay? So once we do that, we're going to understand how she applies the verses, how she does that. So the next time we find a Bible verse, instead of going to Ellen White, what are we going to do? We're going to apply the principle. And once you apply the principle, you're going to arrive to the right answer. Okay? Is there anything wrong to use Ellen White? No. But the problem is, if you go to some passages that she doesn't comment about, like Revelation 17, about the 7 heads, what are you going to do? She doesn't comment about. If you didn't learn yourself how to study the Bible, what are you going to do? So Ellen White is trying to help us when she comments about Revelation 10, when she comments about Revelation 11, 12, 13, but then gets Revelation 17 and she doesn't say anything. What do you think you should do? Go back, see how she's applying the verses, get the principle from that verses, and try to apply them in the passage that she doesn't comment about. Okay? So don't think I'm trying to deny Ellen White. I'm just trying to use the same principles to other passages. Okay, so that's what we're doing now. So we're going to understand how interesting is the way that she applies the verses, because normally we just read the quotes, we read great controversy, and we just pass over the things and that's it. You want to prove that Revelation 13 verse 11 is the United States? What do? You go to great controversy, you read the quote, and you move forward. Isn't that how we did? How we always do? So now we're going to go to the quote and understand how it can be the USA. Okay? So if you could open your notes on page 59. Let's go in the first paragraph. In the book of Revelation, under the symbols of a great red dragon, a leopard-like beast, and a beast with lamb-like horns, Revelation 12 and 13, are brought to view those earthly governments which are spiritually engaged in trampling upon God's law and persecuting His people. So first of all, you know who is the great red dragon? If you want to type it out, that's Revelation 12. I think all of us know, right? The leopard-like beast, that's the first beast of Revelation 13. And the beast with lamb-like horns, that's the second beast of Revelation 13, okay? So the thing here is, we know that the first beast of Revelation 13 is, who is that? Who Sister White says is that? She says it's the papacy. But the papacy is a church. And what is she saying here? They're represented as earthly governments. So what are you going to do now when Sister White says something in one quote and she says another thing in another quote? Let's see how that works, okay? So first of all, let's understand how can she get the idea that those are represented by earthly governments. Okay, let's think we don't have Sister White. The Millerites, they didn't have Sister White, and they understood those verses. So let's think we don't have Sister White, and we're going to try to understand how can we come to those kind of conclusions without her. So let's open to Revelation 12. Verse 1. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with sun, and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she being with child cried, travailing in birth, and pained to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven. What just happened here in verse 3? So to John it showed a woman, right? And how is that woman? Let's draw that. Okay. How is that? She has a crown, right? She's pregnant. Okay. And she's about to have a baby, right? So can we say she is 9 months? Okay, right? So 9 months. Because she's about to have a baby. Actually, she's going to have a baby in verse 4 or 5, something like this. So if she has pain because she's going to have a baby, she has to be in the 9th month, right? And if we know this son is Jesus Christ, okay, I'm going some steps forwards now. We know this vision is taking the time of the end of Christ, okay, 4 BC. But that's another subject. I don't want to talk about that now. So what does she have upon the stars? 12 stars, right? I'm going to put 12 here. And she's clothed with a sun. Right? I'll put the sun here. And what does she have upon her feet? The moon. Okay, so we have a woman. You have stars, you have sun, you have a moon. And she's 9 months. What else it says? Okay, and then it says in verse 3, and there appeared another wonder in heaven. So John is seeing a vision in heaven, and he sees a woman, but now what he sees? a great red dragon. What is that suggesting for you? It's a principle we have been learning for some months now. Compare and contrast. God is showing to John what? Two symbols in heaven. First a woman and then a dragon. And how is that dragon? Let's draw this. Okay, I'm going to draw a bad dragon here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, what is the color of this red? Of this red? Red, okay. And what else does it have, this dragon? 10 horns. Okay, how many crowns? 7 crowns. So I'm going to put it here, 1 crown. Red crown, okay. It has 10 horns. And it has a tail? Okay, and it got a lot of stars, right? So is that what it's saying? So God is trying to show John, compare and contrast. So now what we're going to do is the following. We're going to try to see the symbols that God gave us, and we're going to try to understand what they represent, what they mean for us, okay? Because we're going to see that that's what Sister White does, okay? We're doing some practice right now. So what is stars, sun, and moon? Symbols of Islam, okay. a little bit more to the natural. They're the powers of heaven, right? Are they the powers of heaven? They're the rulers of heaven. So we can write here, they're the powers. And if they're the powers of heaven, what do you think this great dragon is? It has some crowns. What does that mean for you? It means he's a ruler, right? But is he a ruler of the heavens? No, he's a ruler of the earth. So if you compare and contrast the two symbols and what they are representing, you can see that these are heavenly powers and these are what? Earthly powers. Can you see that? We didn't need Ellen White. We use compare and contrast. We look for the symbols. We try to see what they mean. And we do the right application. So we can say that those are earthly powers. What about the color of them? Why is God revealing the color for them? What is the color of the sun? Yellow? No, the color of the sun is white. Okay, those lights you have here pointing for you, they're white color, they are daylight. Okay, the color of the sun is white. During sunset is yellow because of the atmosphere. But the color of the sun is white. And it's white because it has the 7 colors in it. So here we have the sun, which is white. And the sun shines, right? So it represents glory. And what does white represents contrasting to red? What does the red means? Blood. Also means earth. Adam, right? Adam means earth. What? Sin, okay. So we have many symbols. Which one are you going to use? We have many symbols for a same color. Which one are you going to use? You're going to use by context. We're going to see in the next verses that he's doing what? He's persecuting. So the red colors means that he's what? He's killing people. Okay? He's persecuting people. Instead of this glorious church, okay, which is white, which is spotless, which has 7 colors, which is a symbol of perfection. Okay? So if you use compare and contrast, if you use the principles that the Word of God gives for us, we can have the truths even though we are not reading Ellen White. And again, I'm not denying Ellen White. I'm just trying to do it here, because here it's easy, because Ellen White comments about. But as I said, Revelation 17, she doesn't. And that's why we have thousands of interpretations differently about that chapter. So if we get the right principle and we understand how it works, we can apply that for other passages. Okay? Let's go to the next paragraph. Through the great powers controlled by paganism and the papacy, symbolized by the dragon and the leopard-like beast, said for many centuries destroy God's faithful witnesses. Under the dominion of Rome, they were tortured and slain for more than 1,000 years. But the papacy was at last deprived of its strength and forced to desist from persecution. Now we are in Revelation 13, okay? So we have the earthly power in Revelation 13. We have the leopard-like beast, which is an earthly power under or controlled by whom? By the papacy. You see that? You see Shin saying that? We have the earthly power, which is the beast, but it's controlled by whom? By the papacy. Okay? And also the great red dragon, it's controlled by paganism. So we have the religion's body, but we also have the state. Okay? So we don't see a woman here on the top of the great red dragon, but Sister White's saying there is what? Paganism here. And in the other beast of Revelation 13, you have what? You have a beast. You don't have a woman sitting on top of it, but it's controlled by whom? By the papacy. Okay? So now we are in Revelation 13. Look at what Sister White's going to say now. At that time, the prophet beheld a new power coming up. Oh, sorry. I think I'm jumping ahead.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. At that time, the prophet beheld a new power coming up, represented by the beast with lamb-like horns. The appearance of this beast and the manner of its rise seems to indicate that the power which it represents is unlike those brought to view under the preceding symbols. Did you see what she just did? She's talking about the appearance of the beast and the manner of its rise. So here we have a symbol. I'm going to erase this. Now we're talking about... I'm sorry. So she's talking about, she's talking about the USA here, okay? About verse 11. She's saying the appearance of this beast and the manner of its rise seems to indicate that the power which is represented is unlike those brought to view under the preceding symbols. So what is she asking us to do in this verse? In this part of in the sentence? Compare and contrast. She's saying, these beasts you're saying, they are unlike the others. So what you should do? You go to the others and compare and contrast with this one. Okay? So let's do this. Just a second. Let's read a little bit more and then we draw. The great kingdoms that have ruled the world obtained their dominion by conquest and revolution, and they were represented to the prophet Daniel as beasts of prey, rising when the four winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea. That's Daniel 7, verse 2. So, let's compare and contrast the two beasts of Revelation 13. How is the first beast of Revelation 13? 13a. We have a beast, 7 heads. Okay, and it comes from the sea, right?
Yes, that's right.
And how is that beast? How is the appearance of beast as she's talking about? Let's go to Revelation 13, verse 1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was into like a leopard, and his feet were as feet of a bear, and his mouth a mouth of a lion. So what are the similar characteristics of these 3 animals that this beast is represented? They are animals that you don't want to see in front of you, right? In other words, you can say also that those animals, what are they? They kill people, right? And what is the other beast? How is the other beast? The beast in verse 11 is a lamb like horn. So let's draw the other one. So we have here beast, but there are 2 horns, right? And that's like a lamb. And this has a lot of horns, 10 horns, okay? Many crowns. So now what are we going to do? We need to compare and contrast them. How is those animals, a lion, a bear, and a leopard, comparing to a lamb? A lamb is really what? Really gentle, right? Can we say that? So the lamb is really calm. And how is a leopard? Rude, okay? And another word you can say, the leopards or the lion, they have their territory. And what do they do if you enter in their territory? They're gonna kill you, okay? They are a beast that you don't want to be in their territory because he's gonna try to bite you. Does a lamb does that?
No.
A small lamb does that? So if you have this comparison, you can understand that these beasts are beasts that came out of the sea, which Daniel 7 already tells us that are a great nation that is striving and fighting against each other, okay? You can know that this beast comes out from a place where there is a lot of what? Conquering of territories. And this beast here, does this beast conquer territories? No. That's why it's going to say in the next paragraph that this beast comes from a place what? Unoccupied. Look at what Sister it's going to say. Go with me in the second paragraph. The great kingdoms that have ruled obtain the world, obtain their dominion by conquest and revolution. Does that matches with that beast? And they are represented to the prophet Daniel as beasts of praise. Okay, let's move forward. But the beast with horn like a lamb is seen coming up out of the earth, signifying that instead of overthrowing all other powers to establish itself, the nation thus represented arose in a territory previously unoccupied and grew up gradually and peacefully. Did you see that? So if you see the characteristics of the beast, you can come to that conclusions. And also, if you know that the Great Sea, based upon Daniel 7, verse 2, is talking about what? About people, okay? About this kind of turbulence place here where there is a lot of conquering. What is this contrasting to earth? It means it's peaceful. It means it's unoccupied. Actually, when the women flew, the past of fly. when the women went to the wilderness, okay, we know that this is representing the 1260 years of papal supremacy. But we know that in Europe, the Church of God was not in the desert, was not in the wilderness. They were where? The mountains, right? So we know the wilderness doesn't mean exactly what? The desert. It means what? That they went to a place unoccupied. A place where there are not people, because that's how a wilderness is. Because you need to understand what is a wilderness. So they went to a place that is unoccupied. That's why it says that they went to the wilderness, okay? And a wilderness is made of what? A lot of sand, right? A lot of earth, okay? So we need to try to look to the symbols and understand what they mean for us, and really go to the natural, understand how the natural works so we can do the right application. We need to remember that God created the nature, and in the nature you can see the truth of God, and you're going to find a lot of answers, because the symbols that are used in Revelation are what? Things of nature, and we need to understand how it works. It's already 30 minutes. Let's move forward. Here is a striking figure of the rise and growth of our nation. And the lamb-like horns, emblems of innocence and gentleness, well represent the character of our government, as expressed in its two foundational principles, republicanism and Protestantism. If I have written that before Ellen White, I don't think you would believe it. Look at what she said. She's looking to the lamb-like horns, and she's saying, oh, a lamb is really gentle. A lamb is really innocence. And here you are in 1798, and you look around, which country in the world is really gentle? Which country in the world is really innocent for me to apply this beast? But do you see that that's how she does it? So we need to start to understand how is she using this logic to apply the verses so we can do the same thing. Okay? It's important to try to understand what the things means. Let's move forward. The next quote, where it says compare and contrast, just a small quote you can read in your own time. Another example that's Sister White, that God uses a lot of compare and contrast, even showing to Sister White. Okay? But now I want to do a little bit more of practice. Okay? How we need to be careful when we are applying the things. Okay? Let's go to the history of Noah. Okay? If you go to the history of Noah, what normally we do? In the line of Noah, say as it was in the days of Noah, it's going to be today, right? So normally what we say is this. There is a shut door here, and then the rain comes, right? What do we say is that normally? Close of probation. Normally we say that's the Sunday law, right? When there is a closed door. And after the Sunday law, what do you have? You have a lot of rain. Isn't that what we say? But if we really try to look careful to the histories and try to understand what the symbol means, and try to use those questions that we learned during these passages that we read, I think we're going to find something different. Because even though the latter rain is a rain, and there is a rain that comes in the line of Noah when the door is closed, what does the latter rain does? It makes the plant grow, right? But what does the rain does in the history of Noah? It destroys the people. So even though you have exactly the same symbol, they mean totally different things. Okay? So let's say this is the line of Noah, and here is our line. What is the latter rain doing for us? It's making the plant grow. It's giving us spiritual grace so we can be prepared for what? For the 7 last plagues. Okay? So I will draw this again. So we have a closed door. They wait for how many days?
7 days.
7 days. And then what happens?
Rain.
And what does this rain does? Cause destruction. Destruction. Okay? So let's go to our line. When is the shut door in our line? It's the close of probation. The line of the 144,000. Okay? That's the close of probation. What caused the destruction of the whole world in the last days? The 7 last plagues. What else? Christ, right? When Christ comes in the clouds, His glory is going to do what? It's going to kill everyone. So we know that even though we have a Sunday law here, and we have a latter rain here, we have the close of probation. How many plagues we have? 7 plagues. And then what comes? We have Christ comes. And when He comes, what is He going to do for the tares? Destroy them. So we see that even though this is a rain, and in our history we have a latter rain, doesn't mean that the words are the same, that they have the same meaning. We need to be careful and understand what are the meaning of the things. The latter rain here doesn't mean this rain, because this rain comes to cause destruction, and the latter rain comes to make you grow. You understand that? So the second coming of Christ is paralleling this rain. So we need to be careful with those kind of applications. We really need to watch what the things mean. Okay? And this is also for daily life. Why for daily life? I'll give you an example. Let's say if I have an old Bible in my house, okay, and I cannot read anymore this Bible. I cannot read it. It's just falling all apart. It's dusty. I cannot read at all. What will I do? I'm going to buy a new Bible. Okay? I'm going to buy a new Bible. What we will do with the old one? I'm going to throw in the trash. And you know what they do on Fridays at the School of the Prophets in Brazil? They burn the Bible. Oh, Brother Daniel, you are in apostasy. Brother Daniel, I have a thus saith the Lord for you that you are in apostasy. I'm going to open Revelation 11 for you and show that the French Revolution, they burned their Bible in the streets of Paris. Is it the same thing? What does it mean when the French Revolution, they burned their Bible? They're in open rebellion against God. What it means when I threw an old Bible that is just impossible for me to read in the trash and then they go and burn it. If you're saying if you think I'm doing something wrong, I'm going to tell you that in the third coming of Christ in this earth, He's going to bring what from heaven? Fire. And He's going to burn thousands and millions of Bibles that are in this earth. Does that mean He's in apostasy? We need to understand that even though if I'm burning the Bible on Friday at the School of the Prophets, if Christ is burning millions of Bibles at His third coming, or if the French Revolution are burning the Bibles in the streets of Paris, even though they're exactly the same thing, they totally means what? Different things. We need to understand this kind of concept. It's like someone leaves this message and they get one of this of this 1843 chart, and they post a photo on the internet stepping on a charge, really sad, with a face really mad. What do you think he's doing? He's in open rebellion against God. But then you stand here and you're going to drink some water and you are walking by the wall and there is an 1840 chart there. And right when you are about to give the next step, you step on the top of the chart. Does that mean you are in apostasy? No. It doesn't mean you are in apostasy, even though you're doing exactly the same thing. We understand that? Is that hard to see? Okay. So it's really important for us to look to the Bible, to look to the symbols and try to understand what they mean. And that's also for some things that we do in daily life. Because Sister White tells us, what about eating meat? You're not supposed to eat meat, right? You're not supposed to drink milk, dairy-free, no eggs, right? But then what we can do? We can go to fast food and try to eat some processed vegan hamburger and use a thus said the Lord to say, oh, it's vegan. Sister White says I'm not supposed to eat meat. So I can eat this processed food. Is that right? Do we really understand what it means to be health? Do we really understand what it means when Sister White says we should have health reform? Or are we going to use Sister White as a list of what we should do and what we shouldn't do, and whatever she doesn't say we shouldn't do, we're not going to get the principle. We're going to do that thing. You understand what I mean? We need to look to the quotes and try to understand what they mean for us, not just use what it's written. Okay? This is a really important principle. And I'm telling you this because it had a hard time for me to click those kind of things. When Parminder was trying to show this logic about the loud cry, I was super disagreeing. I couldn't believe he was saying those kind of things. He didn't have a verse to prove the loud cry being during the harvest time. Actually, he had some verses to say that there is no rain, because a loud cry is a rain as well, during the harvest time. He couldn't prove that with a verse. He couldn't prove that with a quote. The only way he could prove that is based upon showing you what the things means. Okay? So that's something we need to watch. Let's go to Revelation 13 again. Verse 11. Verse 11 says, "And I behold another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. And he exercised all the power of the first beast before him, and caused the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed." Let's go to verse 14. "And deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast which had the wound, but a sword, and did live." We know what the image of the beast is, right? What is the image of the beast? Sister White plain says that it's church and state. Church and state together. So we have here the image of the beast. And we know that this is church plus state. So what I want to do now is to show how we should try to understand that even though Sister White says that, it doesn't mean it's just that. Okay? And I want to read a quote for you. It's not on your notes, but it's a quote that everybody is familiar with. And that's Christ Object Lessons 127.4. And she says like this: "In every age there is a new development of truth, a message of God to the people of that generation. The old truth are all essentials. New truth is not independent of the old, but an unfolding of it." So I'd like to remember you that throughout eternity we're going to see what? A new development of the truth. Okay? So even though Ellen White says that the image of the beast is the connection of church-state, there is what? There is more layers to put upon it. Okay, it's more deep than that. We can go deeper if we try to dig that out. Okay, so using the principle of compare and contrast, we're going to try to find just a little bit more information about what the image of the beast is. Okay, so how can we compare and contrast the image of the beast? We know that the image of the beast is what? It's a counterfeit of what? Of the image of God. Can we say that? Right. So we have the image of the beast and we have the image of God. So what we normally would do is, I want to understand what is the image of the beast. So what do? You go to Ellen White and you type image of the beast and you find what it's written. And that's nothing wrong with that. So now what I'm suggesting you to do is, if you know the image of the beast is contrasting with the image of God, try to type image of the God. So you have the contrast information to draw informations of what the image of the beast is. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay, so you have the image of the beast and you have the image of God. And if you go to 2 Chronicles, verse 4, Second Corinthians, sorry. 2 Corinthians, verse 4. 4. Mm-hmm. Verse 4. Look at what it's going to say. In whom the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine into them. So, what is the image of God like? How is that? Is what? It's the gospel of Christ, who is the image of God. So the gospel of Christ is the image of God. So I have the image of the beast. And here you have the image of God. And how is that? The gospel. What is Christ's gospel? It's the everlasting gospel, right? So we have the everlasting gospel, which is the image of God. So if the image of God is the everlasting gospel, now what do we know the image of the beast can represent? The gospel of the beast. So now we can see another layer of information that we can get from that symbol. The image of the beast is the church and state combined, but it's also what? The gospel of the beast. And what is the gospel of the beast? Persecution, right? Isn't that what they want to do? What is the gospel of God, the three angels' message? It should save you, to restore you. So we have this contrast between the image of God and His gospel, and we have the image of the beast, which is the church and state, but we also can say that this is their gospel, or their message, if you want to call it this. And now, when you go back to Revelation, and you're going to read the verses, image of the beast, you're going to see how it's going to help. Let's go back. Revelation 13. Verse 14. Verse 15. And he had power to give life into the image of the beast, which is what? Which is his message to destroy God's people. Okay. That the image of the beast should both speak. So the image of the beast is speaking here. And cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. So we see that the verse is repeating itself and explaining what the image of the beast is doing. What is it doing, the image of the beast? Killing people. Isn't that their gospel? Isn't that the gospel of the beast? Isn't that the message of the beast? Okay? So what I'm trying to show here is we have Ellen White commenting upon it. But I don't want to say that this is shallow. But I want to say that we can go deeper. We can get more information. And if we have more information about those things, we can understand more about what it's talking about. And why all that I'm saying it's important. Why I'm using those time. I am the kind of person that I love doing application. When I was here at this school, Antonija, she arrived a little bit late, not late. She arrived after the school started, a few weeks later. And when she met me for the first time, she said, "Oh, are you the Daniel that loves to do application?" So I am the one that loves to do all the kinds of applications. And I have to learn how to stop and before do this kind of applications, try to look to the natural, try to look to the principle, and try to apply it carefully, okay? So this is a hard thing for me, and I'm sure this is a hard thing for all of us because all of us are used to do a lot of application. So why is that all important? Because when we go to the light that is being brought by Tess about the Midnight Cry message, and when we see that she's bringing histories from Pyrrhus, which you don't have a thus said the Lord for that history, we have to understand the principles that she's applying. We have to understand what the things mean in that context, because we need to use that principle, because first of all, we don't have a thus said the Lord for that history. Okay? So we need to understand the right principle. We need to understand what the things mean so we apply them correctly. You want an example? If you go to Daniel 11 verse 41, what it says there? And the king of the north is going to what? Enters in the glorious land, right? So I'll tell you a history. In 2015, the Pope, the king of the north, he enters in the Congress of the United States. Do we say that Daniel 11 verse 41 was fulfilled? No, because we are wise virgins and we understand what it means to enter in the glorious land. We don't go just as it's written. So when I remember Tess presenting the logic about the elephants, and she presented the first day that the elephant is the new mode of war that is introduced, I remember after your presentation some people going to the board and say, "Do you think this is a new kind of weapon, a laser weapon that the Russian development and they're going to burn USA? Do you think this is the new nuclear bomb they're developing?" You see how dangerous it is? We look to the history, we see the elephants showing there, and now we need to look to the elephant and try to understand what it means for us. Because if you go fast, not careful, what are you going to say? You're going to say that an elephant is an atomic bomb, and you're going to be expecting on November 9 an atomic bomb hits USA, and you're going to be disappointed because that's not what it means. So do you see how important it is to look to the symbols and try to understand what it means for us? Okay? That's what I try to show here. There's a little bit more of time. I want to go to Revelation 10. Okay? So we're going to do the same thing. Verse 1. And I saw another mighty angel coming down from heaven, clothed with a cloud. And a rainbow was upon his head, and his face was as it were the sun, and his feet as pillars of fire. Normally what we would do is open 9 BC, 7 BC, okay, 971, and says that this is not less a person than Jesus Christ, right? But now we're going to try to do the old way. Let's say like this. We're going to try to go through this. So we have many things here. First of all, we have a mighty angel come down from heaven. Let's say step 1. Here's the earth. And we have a mighty angel coming down from heaven. Okay? That's the first thing you have. What it says later, clothed with a cloud. Okay, so now you have the angel here. You have the angel. and he's clothed with a cloud. Okay, that's a cloud. And a rainbow was upon his head, and his face was as it were the sun. So we see that he has a rainbow here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 colors, the rainbow. And how was his face? So here you have the face of the angel, and it's like the sun. And how is his feet? That seems silly, the things we are drawing. But the reason I do this is because when we draw the symbols of nature that we have, we can go slowly in each one of those and try to understand in a calm fashion what they mean for us, okay? So let's make some questions here. What does it mean when an angel come down from heaven? If you go to Daniel, if you go to other books of Bible, what happens when an angel comes down from heaven? He brings a message. So we know that he's doing what? Bringing a message, right? And he's a mighty angel, so he's not any angel, okay? We see a mighty angel coming down in Daniel, and who is that mighty angel? It's Gabriel, right? So if we don't have Ellen White, we could say it's Gabriel. We could say it's Jesus. If we don't have Ellen White, it's a mighty angel. It's not anyone. It's an important one. So here we have, in this second picture, we have the cloud. What does the cloud do? It brings what? Brings fire, brings shadow. What else? Brings rain. Okay, so we have those kind of symbols. What does the rainbow represent? Covenant, right? Anything else the rainbow represent for us? Okay, so here we have the sun that is like, his face is like the sun, and his feet, or it's like the fire. So we see that from the hand to the feet. Have you heard this expression? Another place, Isaiah 1. The church of God is from the hand to the feet. It's bad. Let's go to Isaiah 1. You have that in the vows, so probably you should know about that. Verse 5. Why should ye be stricken anymore? Ye will revolt more and more, and the whole head is sick, and the whole heart is faint. And from the sole of the foot even into the head there is no soundness in it. Okay, so here you have a person that is sick from the head to the feet. But here you have an angel that in the head it's fire, because what do you have in the sun? A lot of fire, right? In the head, what do you have? Fire as well. Okay, but what it does, it represents what? The sun in the face. Glory, right? It's shining. That's how the face of God looks like. Okay, so it's representing someone that is pure from head to feet. Can we say that? I don't know if we can say that. That's the kind of application that Sister White does, and we are trying to do the same thing, okay? So, but the thing is important here is because we know now that we have a message from heaven that's going to confirm the covenant, and it's going to bring the rain, and it's from someone that is pure, okay? We can say that. So, let's move forward in the verses. Verse 2, Revelation 10. And he has in his hand a little book open, and he set his right foot upon the sea and his left foot upon the earth. I'm not comment about it because we're out of time. I want to go to verse 3. And cried with a loud voice as when a lion... This word is hard for me. So I hope you understand what I mean if I say something else, okay? Roareth, okay? And as when a lion roareth, and when he cried, 7 thunders uttered their voices. So what do we have here? That's what I want you to see. we have Christ, we have this angel, sorry, and he's crying aloud, okay? But it's represented by what? By a lion that roar, okay, this word, okay? He do this really loud cry as well. So normally I would pass through these verses and like, I don't care, understand, like a lion is really strong and Jesus has a strong voice and that's it. But I wanted to show you that if we really stop in the verse and try to go to the natural and try to understand the spiritual, not trying to rush through the Bible, how many truths we can get from it. So what I did was the following. I said lion, okay, so how is a roar of a lion? Normally we think it's one big one. I use it to think it's a big one, like 30 seconds, wow, 30 seconds doing like this. But I didn't know. I grew up in the city. I have been to a zoo once or twice or 3 times. I don't know how a lion works, okay? So I went to YouTube. You go to YouTube, and if you type how a lion roars, you're going to notice that he doesn't do a long one. How does he do? Many short ones. Go to YouTube and check it. You have to go to the natural to understand the spiritual. And if you didn't grow up in a countryside and you don't know how a lamb looks like, what you have to do? You have to go to Wikipedia, you have to go to YouTube to study prophecy. That's what you have to do because you didn't grow up in the midst of nature. You understand that? So if you go to YouTube and you see how a lion roars, I don't know how to pronounce this word correctly, but you understand what I mean, okay? If you see, it makes a lot, like 10 times or 7 times, 8, 9, 12 times, small, with a short period of time, but with a really deep and strong voice, okay? It's many times, it doesn't do a big one. So what could I notice when I saw that? We have here Christ, he's crying aloud, and there is 7 thunders. But here you also have a lion being represented, and a lion doesn't give one cry, he gives many cries. So now what I'm going to do? I'm going to compare the lion with the thunders. Can I do that? The Bible is telling us to do this. It's saying it cried as a lion does, okay? So we have here Christ crying, and when he cries there are 7 thunders. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, we have 7 here. And it's comparing with a lion. And he do many. And he cries, he roars many times. Okay? And could I say it's 7? Because it's comparing with 7 thunders? Oh, Daniel, you cannot do that. You don't have a thus said the Lord for that. I don't have. I really don't have. But I understand what the things mean. So at least I'm trying to. Okay? And if you go to the nature, how is a thunder? It's a deep voice. It's a strong voice. And how is when the lion roars? It's a deep voice. It's a strong voice. And it happens many times. It's not at once. Okay? So the only thing I did is I went to YouTube to try to understand the natural. But I could do something else. So I started to ask myself, what questions could I make for the symbol to understand and to apply it correctly? So I went to understand, why does the lion roar? Okay? And I figured out something that is really interesting. And look at what I found. It is this is talking about the lion, okay? It's on the internet. It says, it is one of the loudest calls in the animal kingdom and can be heard from up to 8 kilometers away. Do you think that has any parallel with a thunder? Yeah. Yeah, it does. Okay? That's animal, and the other one is a lightning. Okay? Now you keep going. The male's roar is deeper and louder than a female. Okay? The lion roars to tell other lions where they are. So what is the reason that the lion roars? To tell the other ones where they are. So if I had this information in my mind, but I had to go to Wikipedia to look this because I didn't grow up in the midst of lion. So if I had this information in my mind, I could tell what the lion is doing is what? It's telling you where you are. So if the lion is doing that, what are the thunders doing? I'm going to read what Sister White comments what the thunders are. Sister White says that the thunders is a delineation of events which will transpire on the first and second angel's message. So the thunders are telling you what? Where you are in prophetic history. So if you look to the natural, if you look to the book of nature that God created, where God put a lot of truths on it, and if you look this carefully, and if you try to understand what it means, you're gonna have many truths that are not written in Sister White's writings. And when Sister White doesn't comment about a passage that you want to study, you're gonna be able to walk by yourself. Amen. Just one last thing about the lions. It says this: lions roar to tell other lions where they are and to show how big they are. Look at what Sister White talks about the seven thunders. Here, he cries with a loud voice. This is 7 BC 971.3. He is to show the power and authority of his voice to those who have united with Satan to oppose the truth. It's the same thing that the lion does to show how big they are when the enemies comes. It's the same thing that Christ is doing. But many times we jump those verses because we think we understand what it means when it's like a lion, and we don't try to go deeper and get more and more truths of the Word of God. So brothers and sisters, I took a long time to get it. If I was studying this verse months ago, the first thing I would do is go to the concordance and type lion and see where there's a lion in the Bible. And probably I would do the same mistake as the rain in the line of Moses. Probably I will do the same mistakes as the people that left the movement did with Joel 1. We have the locust, but it doesn't mean Islam just because in Revelation 9 the locust means Islam. You understand what I mean? So we need to understand that those kind of things. We need to see the meaning of things. We need to see that there is a lot for we to dig and find more things in the Word of God. Okay? So that was it. Tomorrow we're going to study a little bit the Sermon on the Mount. And when Jesus starts to preach in parables in Matthew 13. And if you want to read that, I would recommend you to read not just what it's written, but try to understand what the things means, okay? And we come back tomorrow, and we're going to try to get some lessons for that, okay? Let's pray. Father in heaven, thank you for your word. Thank you for teaching us the principles of your word. I ask you that your Holy Spirit may be with each one of us. And as we study your word, I ask you to help us to be careful to handle those truths so we can learn deeper and deeper the truths that you had for us. Thank you for this study. Thank you for being with us. In Jesus' name, amen.